calls this oversight hearing to order. It is now 1:33 p.m. on Thursday, October 13th. The purpose of this oversight hearing is to discuss the status of the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, and we'll cover various topics including board policy regarding easements, the status of approval of easements, the inventory list of Crown lands, status of accounts, GEDA Partnerships, litigation involving the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, and the status of commissioners. Notice of this oversight hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media on October 5th, 2016, and October 10th, 2016, thus meeting the requirements of the open government law. This oversight hearing is also being broadcast on local television, so for those who are testifying, please make sure that you speak clearly into the mic. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and call up, Joe, do we have this? I'm going to call up then the chairperson of the Ancestral Lands Commission, and I guess Mr. Camacho, you're going to join the chairperson up there. Or if the entire commission wants to sit up at the table, join the chairperson at the table, you're certainly welcome to come forward to the table. So who might that be? It's not cold, you're just nervous. Okay, so I would like, if you want, so who's, Ann, you're the chairperson, correct? So if you want, go ahead and introduce for the record then who's here with you, and then we'll just begin with the dialogue. Please speak into the mic and make sure the mic is turned on.
Good afternoon. To my immediate right is our Deputy Director for the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. And to my right is Commissioner Maria Cruz, Commissioner Antonio Ada, Commissioner Rana Clavea, and Commissioner Louisa Wrestling. And
Okay.
I'm Anita Orlina.
Okay, and you're the chairperson
Yes.
of the commission at this time. If we can, unless you have anything prepared to start off with, you could do that. Start off with any prepared remarks or presentation that you may have. Otherwise, we can just kind of like lead along, and I'll basically ask questions, and you could probably elaborate on it. So, do you have anything prepared that you want to start out with?
Yeah, we just lead along, so we have that kind of. Right. So we'll go ahead and lead along.
You just want me to basically lead it on through, okay? So, well, first of all, let's just, we really haven't had a hearing, an oversight hearing. In fact, all the members don't even come to the legislature for confirmation hearing like the other commissions have. So this is really kind of like our first formal meeting. And so maybe we can start off by just clarifying, for my understanding and for those who may be watching, what is the role of the Ancestral Lands Commission?
Okay, the role of the Guam Ancestral Land Commission first is the facilitator for the lands that are returned from the U.S. federal government to the original landowner. We're there to help the landowners also in facilitation and whatever they need to get going with their claims for their certain property.
Okay. So let's start with that. And instead of going all over the map, my understanding is that the largest tract of ancestral lands that have been returned is that property along Route 15 in Mangilao that is bounded on the north by the Navy Golf Course, is bounded on the east by a bunch of, industrial zone properties by Hawaiian Rock and that. And then to the west, bounded by residential properties in Mangilao. So we've got this big tract of land. Can we put that up? So do you have the green aerial on that? Rick, is this thing on? So we'll just take the time to actually take a look at an area that we're looking at, and then we'll just develop our conversation from that point on. Karen, can you let Joe sit down so that he can... Okay, so this is the tract of land. I believe this here is the golf course. This here is basically you got Lalo, Barrigada, and you got Mangilao there. These are all residentials. There's Route 15 here. And so this here is the tract of land that has been returned, declared excess, returned, I guess, to Gov Guam through the Ancestral Lands Commission to be returned to original landowners. Now, my understanding is that that has already been completed, correct? The properties have been returned to the original landowners. Is that correct, Ms. Orlino?
Yes, that's
It has.
most of them.
Can you
Some
put
are-
on then the other
most of them?
the other overhead,
Some of them.
which shows the boundary lines and where the proposed easements and whatnot? So this is that area that we're talking about, the return lands. And these red lines here are proposed 40-foot easements, which I believe have been, was it a tabletop survey? And has been, Mr. Camacho, tabletop survey and actually severed out?
Yes.
These proposed easements, correct?
Yes,
Right.
red one.
Right. The green shows easements that basically are already pretty much in place.
And recorded.
Been recorded. Okay. So now I understand that. So the question is that are these free and clear now? I mean, what's the status of these easements so that property owners can get into their property? So let's take for example this particular lot here. Right now, they are unable to get into that lot because this easement did not go all the way through. So they're landlocked. Is that correct?
Yes.
However, when this finally opens up, then they'll be able to get to their property, correct?
Yes.
Is there any particular reason why Ancestral Lands, the Commission, did not see to it that this easement went all the way through to be able to, for those landowners to get access to their property?
On that property that you're indicating.
This one?
The other one. Where
This?
the easement didn't go through.
Yeah.
There's a problem on that when the surveyor did the mapping.
Uh-huh.
Part of the egress coming from I believe the Kenny's Cafe, it went through a private property in which the owner didn't agree to the don't agree on the portion of the.
Okay, can
the
you
easement.
use this pointer? Show him the pointer there. And just point out where that is.
How do you do this? Either one? That's a private owned property there. And the first survey that was done on this when this map was the subdivision map was done went to the private owners, in which this easement coming from the outside didn't connect in. It goes straight to this. Then later on during the review of the map by the survey division or department and all those things, we found out that and again the private owner came in and filed a complaint against the surveyor, and the property owner utilizing his property portion of his property in which he had never authorized anyone to tap for the easement. So it stopped there until such time that we and I believe this one went through the process and they approved the subdivision map.
Okay. Can you go ahead and zoom out? Okay.
Then, what's this? This property that we released to the original to the state has been sold at the same time. It was sold to I believe it's a Korean person, and once the property is sold, it's very hard for us to obtain easement from them. The only time that we could address the easement on this, if they're gonna come in and have the property recorded, or do a subdivision map here, or do the survey map on this. That's the time that we're going to address the easement, in which it hasn't been approved yet. It's still lingering. So The only alternative at that time is for us to come from the bottom side. Once we obtain an entrance from Route 15, that's the time that we proceed with addressing all the easement. We need to hook up with a main drag in order for us to open the easement towards this location.
Okay, so let's take a look at this here. You said there was a problem here.
Yeah.
So then these property owners do not have an easement coming in then?
It's already been approved. Later on, it was approved when we hook up this easement coming from here.
Okay, so this is complete now.
Yes, right now.
Is there any reason why this could not be extended so that landowner?
What I'm saying, Senator, is that once this person comes in with his subdivision map or any survey map, we're going to address that, because that's one of the policy that we have within the between us and Department of Land Management, that no survey map on ancestral properties shall be recorded or approved until such time that the easement is being identified.
I understand that part, but is there any reason why we have to wait until this guy is good and ready to come in and do whatever he's going to do with that property, as opposed to the commission approaching that property owner to basically be able to extend that? So in other words, it seems like this property owner in here is at the mercy of that property owner whenever he might choose to be ready.
Yes.
So, I mean, is that the only route?
The thing, I don't know whether we have the authority to demand from, because this property, when it was released to the government of Guam, we released it over to the state, and the state, in essence, sold the property to another individual. Now it belongs to a certain private ownership.
But wouldn't it, I guess on the one hand, my understanding is that the Ancestral Lands Commission, when you return back these properties to the original landowners, is to provide them with the access and the utility easements. But now, so what had happened then is, so the land's gotten sold out.
Yeah.
And what I hear you saying is that we cannot do anything until this guy is good and ready, and then the government can come out and basically use this hammer and say, if you want this map approved, you're going to have to agree to this easement going straight through. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my question is, has that landowner been approached so that he's aware that if you have any plans in the future, you might as well get this one resolved now?
Yes, we have approached the individual. No matter of fact, they came in and we sat down, and the emphasis on that too is that if they come in for an approval on the map in which it hasn't been approved, the survey work on this hasn't been approved through land management or whatnot. And I think, Senator, that's the only way that we could address the easement, if it's going through the process of being recorded.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. Is he going through the process right now?
Right now, yes. And one thing that because he bought both property, these two properties. One thing again is we're trying to work out with the survey is whether it's going to come to there, or do a consolidation and do the subdivision in which they're going to connect the easement in.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's this. Did you have something? Sorry.
Which is the 40-foot that we gave?
I just want to make it clear. I'm not trying to necessarily solve certain issues. I'm just trying to get at the issue of where are we in trying to get easements, and just trying to understand what are some of the problems.
Yeah, Tony, the history behind return of lands, we're talking about the next 2 or 3 generations later. In the old days, the neighbors got along with each other, right? So when the lands got returned, the descendants, they weren't advised by their parents or grandparents that they gave, say, for example, that owner that he can pass by, right? So when in the beginning, I wasn't yet on the board, but in the beginning, it wasn't incorporated in the deed to release that they have a stipulation there that they will grant easements to their landlocked neighbors. Those early deeds don't have it. And so, yeah. So then exists in the current law or in the subdivision law is that if you subdivide a property, you must provide easements for utility. And like here, I guess when this property was divided up, you see how they had to put their easement in there. That's in current law. So as long as these property owners here don't do anything with their property, then that's where we trying to find out how we can go in there and basically reason with them to give their neighbor an access. Otherwise, if we wait until they decide to subdivide it, then on the subdivision law, which is currently on the books, they must put the easements in. So even for, power, water, like that. So if he wants power or water, he's going to have to give up some easement. But if I recall, going into Kenny's, right, when somebody was buying the property, we gave them like 40-foot wide going to the back here. Is this the one?
Yes.
And in return, they were supposed to provide this easement here. They got the property from Ancestral lands, and they reneged on this. But it's a different owner. You see, the one that we say, okay, if we give you some Ancestral lands property to take you all the way in, can you give up some of your property to go to the back part here? And this is way back. This is a while back. And they said, yeah. But then the ownership changed, and it became no. It wasn't documented, I think. So this whole area here, I know that public hearings were held back. They contacted all the landowners. They got together at the Manilo mayor's office, and a map, easement map was presented. And it didn't fly because the owners were all saying, why should I give up my property? It's I guess an emotional issue with the original landowners. They got it back, but when Castro's the one that first presented that,
yes.
Surveyor Castro, they put it out, and the public did they call it a hearing or what? The term for it, where they presented the map to provide easements. This many years ago. Basically, they rejected the whole thing out. So this is it's a continuous effort on the part of Dave to try and. This is something that we can't, like what you kind of indicated earlier, that the government has to go in there and like force it on them. It's very hard.
Not force it on them, but I think the Chamorro words is sudzu.
Yeah. So is it for family? Esta managi mananya i edi kumoguti pago bendi i edi kumoguti pago edi bendi gatu timalago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator, the easement issue, now we're very much on top of it. Properties that were not released yet still under the inventory of the Ancestral Land Commission, those property we have identified and provided the easement in, and certain properties already we have done where the chairperson and through the board we grant easement to the other property. And that's what's happening now. That's one of the policy is that if the property is not yet been released to the state, we do our utmost best to identify the easement and grant the easement to not to landlock the property behind or any property that being landlocked.
So again, I'm using this more as an example
Yeah.
of what's happening with the easements to these properties. So now we're looking at possibly then for this landowner to get into there, since he can't get in through here, then the alternative is to come in through,
To here.
to come in through where? Yeah.
Coming from
All right.
up
Now
here.
that's the
There's two
proposed.
interests from there and this.
That's the proposed 40-foot
Right.
easement, correct? Access as well as utility,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Now, so is that pretty much settled? I mean, in terms of everybody, the surrounding property owners have already, what's the status of it?
We have discussed it with several of the landowners already here, and they're 100% agreeable to what we're doing. We haven't finished in communicating with all the landowners. We on this area most likely it's only about 3 or 4 to go, and all the rest we have communicated and they agreed to the way we did it. And as a matter of fact, this property we're gonna do a deed signing on this around the 26th of this month, in which we just release the property, and that's what we're doing now, Senator.
So what would you say then, for example, this particular easement here that goes into this property, what would you say out of, what's that, 10 lot owners that you have to get approval from? How many would you say? Are you like 80% of the way?
Yes, more than that. These lands that this one, that one, these are all Crown land in which we're overseeing it, and through the board, and we have all the authority to provide the easement in going in.
Okay.
These are Crown land property.
Okay.
And there's only a private ownership on this and that, and we have talked to the owners already, and they're agreeable to it. And again, on this, I've talked to some of the family members. They're supposed to do a subdivision here, and the first subdivision that they did, they're losing. They're trying to cut it up into 3 pieces. However, through this scenario, the subdivision in which there's only 2 cut-ups that they needed, they could cut it up on the first, and I communicate with the surveyor that's doing this, and for him to communicate with the property owner as to the way they're going to cut up the property. Before, they're trying to cut up and divide the property into 3, in which there's 2 ownership only, and now they could cut it up in half. We work it a way where they could cut it up, not losing additional.
Yeah.
easement.
So what that property owner does, whether he wants to subdivide it 2 or 3 ways, that's their. I guess that's for them to figure out.
Yes, but we base ourselves on the statement that they made that they're cutting out into 2 pieces because there's 2 ownership. They divided into
Right.
2. So we did the easement where it's more feasible for them to cut it into 2 pieces.
Right. Go ahead, Tony.
That same property. Tell me if I am referring to the wrong one, right? Estina property, né? You see this line here, the easement?
Yes.
That line is also the boundary line for this thing called the Navy Golf Course.
Correct.
Right? The Navy Golf Course is no longer a Navy Golf Course, it's dead. Right? So with ancestral lands, return of lands is very strong in our feeling. I believe these landowners, through the nicety of the Navy Golf Course, they said they can enter but nothing formally. They can enter to their property through the golf course. I think so, right? And so, wouldn't the problem be solved if the Navy just give it back because they're not playing golf there anymore?
Well, just to let you know, we have sent out a letter today to the Admiral asking for a meeting to discuss that possibility of getting access through there. So that alternative is being looked at by the Lands Committee. And we'll just focus on that. I don't want to get into the discussion of they're not playing golf there anymore, so they should just return that. They may have other designs for it. But right now our concern is, can we get access through that golf course? And to do it, to see if we can get that done on a more permanent basis and not, be vulnerable to having it closed at a whim. But let me just ask in general, do you feel, Mr. Camacho, that the progress being made to get approval from the private property owners so that we can get those easements finalized, if that's progressing, or are we really running into a lot of obstacles? I mean, it is just not moving.
It is moving, and I'm very confident that we could accomplish this, especially on this area, before this year is out. And as I said, I have communicated with the various ownership over here, and they're very, they approve of what we did. And no matter of fact, and I feel happy because of the things that's happening here on the lot 24, 60, and 61.
Is that the school?
For the school. And again, to your public law, that they're the one that's going to open the road going in.
Where's that road exactly there?
This one was 20, I think 60 over there. I don't know again. It's the two property, 60 and 61. There's 60 and 61. So this is the easement going in to that.
So they're going to open that road that goes
right.
to the east and then south.
Yeah.
To connect to Route 15.
Right.
Okay.
As I said, this has already been the grant easement has been done, and the private ownership down here already recorded the map. And I have discussed this with the representative of this property, and they're very happy. And again, most of the property around there are Crown Land property. I've talked to, as I said, I've talked to several of the owners, property owners, and they're very. The first thing they responded, and that they're glad that we're doing this and we're trying to finish it and all those things.
Okay.
Because this thing has been lingering for, more than 10 years,
Right.
15 years. So they're very happy to it.
Well, that's good to hear that you believe that progress is being made.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, I believe where the blue dots are, those are the Crown lands.
Yes.
Okay, can you explain what is that Crown land and what's the purpose of it?
The Crown lands are Spanish Crown, Spanish property that were given to the U.S. and in return, the U.S. returned it to the government of Guam. The Crown land is been identified for the uses of the land bank and to make money for the people or to pay the people that their property cannot be returned to them because of usage of government. One thing that we're trying to clear whether it's the federal government or government of Guam or both of them. That's thing is coming up through our land bank bill rules and regulation. And as I said, the Crown land property, we're utilizing it to make money to generate funds so that we could pay when the time comes, pay those owners that cannot get back their property because of the fact that the government or the government is utilizing
Okay.
for public use.
How does the Ancestral Lands Commission, are there any plans or is there any vision as to how these crown lands can become revenue generators? You got some large tracts of land there.
Yes, no matter of fact, some of the crown land is being on a license already. We like Polaris Point and up here Route 3 and Route 1 property is being leased out. No matter of fact, we have given license to GEDA to certain businesses, and we're making money to that already. We're generating funds through those property. Just recently, I've been discussing this with the director, Mike Borra, concerning this property where our department, our survey division, we're going to finalize the mapping system and start advertising it or put it out for advertise it for that's available for lease, either lease or license.
And what kind of a timeline are you looking at to basically put it out on the market?
Right now, senators, once we transfer it over to, or we relinquish it over to the GEDA people, they could start the process.
Okay,
Because
so that's
the property is available.
okay. So that's a good segue. And I notice, do we have anybody here from GEDA?
Yes.
Were you going to speak on behalf of GEDA? I know that is there an existing MOU with GEDA right now for them to be your property brokers?
Right.
Were you down here then to speak on behalf of GEDA insofar as what GEDA is doing to move these along? Okay, so please identify yourself for the record.
Hafre, my name is Dong Cho. I work for the Guam Economic Development Authority. Our administrator actually sent a written testimony for you to read. Currently, GEDA, we're managing properties for the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission in the Tizen area, Polaris Point, and the Route 1, Route 3 corner across the Guam Regional Medical Center. Our current MOU with them, we have a administrative fee that we charge 14.3%, and for just the main lease and for subleases, we get a 20%. Sublease would be if the land leasee decides to lease a section of their property, then we get 20% cut from there, and then the 80% goes to the Ancestral Lands Commission.
Okay. Could I have the pointer? So, all right, so you've pointed out some properties up there by GRMC, Polaris. Those are properties that's being looked at. Well, I guess down by Polaris, Matson is the one that's leasing that. And that's generating revenues for the Ancestral Lands Commission. Is there a lease already for that property in the vicinity of GRMC?
Yes, there's currently a lease. The Northern Market LLC, they are currently leasing that property.
Okay. We'll get back to that in a minute. I'm more concerned about these properties here. Now, according to Mr. Camacho's statement, these properties can be put out into the market to see if there's any interest by a developer or whoever to lease it to start generating revenue. So is GEDA doing anything to get these properties out in the market?
GEDA only works on the properties that the commission allows us to work on. I'm not sure if these properties were given to us via MOU to
So
lease
go
out.
back to Ancestral Lands.
Senators, those property we haven't given it to GEDA yet. The thing that I'm saying that the director and I are discussing about trying to finalize either the survey on those property, or just to go to the board and have the board do a motion to transfer over to GEDA, so that GEDA could work on the to start the process of making money.
So is there any timeline that we might be looking at? I mean, here you've already gotten a timeline kind of set to be able to try and get this thing finalized, this access to get into this innermost property. You're at least looking at possibly end of the year. Provided nothing.
The only thing that we need is for us to say, go ahead, yes, we'll present it in front of the board and let the board discuss the issue of, giving it to GEDA for RFP or whatever, all those things. And we're putting everything together right now.
Okay,
we're identifying all the Crownland property, and we're doing as much as we could to, there's some property, like one of those, there's a claimant, in which it's showing it's government land, but there's a claimant for the property. There's about a couple of years that it's claiming the property. And one of the property, like South in the Guy, and again, we have we consider the Crownland property, but somebody's trying to claim it. So in essence, we're trying to, first of all, try and finish the survey down on the property so we could register it under the Ancestral Land Commission.
Yeah. So I understand that, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do we have kind of a projected timeline that we're going to shoot for? And granted, things may come up along, claimants may come out of the woods and say, hey, wait a minute, that's my property, and then, that kind of sets you back. But at least a timeline to move down.
I cannot.
And I guess to me that's important, because if I don't have a target to shoot for, it's kind of like.
And this we need the cooperation with maybe the survey division, that for them to let us know as to the timeline, what they could finalize their survey and all those things. But we're, as I said, the director and I have been discussing it, because the property is idling and all those things, and might as well, what we said is, might as well, let's put it in front of the board and transfer it over to GEDA.
So do you think it might be reasonable to say then, today is October,
November,
we'll come back 90 days from now. Where are we? Are we getting a little closer? Or are we still where we were 90 days ago?
I could come back and say we have already referred several property to GEDA.
Okay,
and again, it's the board, it's the time that it's up, and when we're gonna hear it in front of the board, our board schedule.
Senator?
Okay, yes, Mr. Clavian. Please pull the mic in closer.
Just to elaborate a little bit on your question regarding RF being Crown lands, right?
Or however you're going to get it to be a revenue generator.
Yeah. Basically, what we didn't just turn over the whole inventory to GEDA and say RFP these problems. Typically, what we do is, when there's an interest, right? A lot of these businesses or ventures that want Crown lands, they'll come up to the directors and make a request for certain areas, and then they'll come to us and say, hey, there's interest in these properties, and then we say, okay, let's transfer it to GEDA and have them RFP the properties out, and then that's how we go about trying to assess which properties are. So the fact that these areas are new, and the fact that there's a school about to be built, maybe it might be a right time to go in there and follow. We could easily just give it to them and have them RFP it out now, and see the appetite of the area.
Sure. And I guess what we're talking about more so is the RF request for interest.
Yeah.
That
that's a preliminary.
It is
right, and
that's right.
Then before that, yeah, okay, that's a different story. We could still do.
Yeah, I mean, is anybody interested in possibly using this tract of land to put in a subdivision, or is there any kind of interest at all for any other use within certain parameters?
Yeah.
Right.
And we're just basically working within our resources and timeline as opposed to just giving them all the, all the crown lands and saying RFP it out and it's.
No, I understand that,
okay.
but at least, if nothing else, to start probing to see if there's any
Well, I can see your
interest at
point
all.
because basically that might be an impetus for solving some of the easement problems here. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. No,
So-
we're just
so-
hearing that for the first time, to be honest with you. So
Yes.
we're open to it. Of
So
course, yeah.
that's what I'm getting at, and if you don't have a timeline right now, no problem. I'll write you a letter in 90 days and say, are we any closer today than we were 3 months ago? Yes, please.
Okay. Honestly, we haven't discussed this area, the blue dot areas. But I'm thinking if the blue dot areas are within our total decision to put those easements in, tabletop is done already, right? For the drawing. Then the next step is, are we going to use government surveyors to go find the points first? And then, so that's coordination effort. Maybe there's some money to be involved there. And then once you find the points, you have to open it up. Will the land? It's a question that I'm putting out now that we've never discussed before. Do we tell the landowners, this is how you can get in? Go get your hire somebody to open it up for you and go in, or do we open it up for them? That's a big question, and that's a cost that the board or the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission doesn't have that kind of money to hire somebody to open it up. So I guess looking at it now, right now today, the tabletop is drawn. So get surveyors to go out there to mark the points and then get it to open. So we can say there's an easement, but they still can't get in because it's still barranca or there's some trees and stuff like that. And that's where we're going to need help to find the resources to make that part of it happen.
Yeah. But you agree that we have to establish the easement first?
Yes.
I mean, the tabletop is one thing.
Yeah.
Getting the adjacent landowners to agree to take in, space from their property, so many feet from their property is another thing that needs to be resolved, right?
Right. So when I'm looking at all the blue dotted areas,
Yes.
we can do that already. I mean, it's already there. And then going, that's west, no? Up is north.
Right.
So then going west, those are the ones that have individual families.
Oh, this is Crown land here, right?
Yeah.
That's Crown land.
Earlier, yeah.
All this here is Crown land.
Yeah. So we can go in right away if we get the resources to do it. And then once, because I just learned that the blue dots are Crown land today as we're talking, we can bring the opening right to there and we can go this way. These landowners, you might force us to make the entire easement on the Crown land site, because if they don't want to give part of their property, I don't know, just thinking out loud.
Just a second. More likely, I think the most important thing at this time is, with all those blue dots, those are Crown lands. We could grant those easements, and we will proceed to finalize everything. We'll take care first of the people that are landlocked, and then we could move into those dots. Because usually, when they show interest to come in and lease or license, it's all dependent on what kind of business they want to do. So they come before the board and present their proposal as to what they want to do. So what I really want to do, or with this board and work hand in hand, is to complete those easements for those landowners, so they won't be landlocked. And then in 90 days, maybe you could write to us and ask us what did we do yet with the other Crown lands, so that, because right now, that's, I think, the foremost, more important, is to finish that up and then work in the Crown lands. And then, because still we have to identify those, then they come before the board, and then we give it over to GEDA, said, here, we're ready for this piece of properties to be RFP'd or whatever. Or if they go to GEDA first and show interest, then we take action. So with the granting of the easement with the Crown lands, that's no problem within the Guam Ancestral Land Commission.
Well, so, to answer Tony Ada's question about, yeah, we can tabletop survey this and sever it out, but then somebody needs to go in there and open it up, So, I think a good example is when the school bought this property and said, we're going to open up this road here. It just opens up a whole lot of opportunities for these properties, right? Because you had a developer in there who's willing to build the roads. So my point then is, if you were to get a developer for these properties here, he may very well be willing to bring in infrastructure into there.
Right.
And that's where the money's going to come from.
I was going to mention about the bill that you did for the school, and it's a blessing in disguise that you provided some dollar signs for the opening of the road, and that's a lot of help for us. Now to let you know, on the private side, the ownership or the owner of the property, now that we identify the easement, they are ready to go in and survey the property, and through their survey will help flag the easement in, and for them to provide. And as I said again, our department will help out in connecting the easement from one property to the other property.
So I hope you're feeling the excitement that I'm feeling, that there's a lot of opportunities here if we get certain things started.
Yeah.
Okay? And, I hope you write me back in 60 days and say, okay, we're ready to go to step 2 instead of 90 days. But, I think there's a lot of possibilities here, okay? And we just got to drive it. Now, this then brings me to the question of, you basically have a property broker here, which is GEDA.
Yes.
And of course, for their services to go out there and put out ads in the paper to request for interest, to see who may be interested in these Crown lands for leasing, develop the lease and all that stuff, they should get paid for their services. But your fees, I'm just curious, how did you guys arrive at, 14%? Is that a competitive market rate?
It was negotiated between GEDA and the Ancestral Lands Commission.
No, the question was, is that a competitive market rate?
For property management?
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't tell you
Yeah.
but we do have a broker here that might be able to answer the question.
Well, I'll just give my opinion. I don't think so. I'm not a broker. I'm sorry.
We have a professional here, so.
To answer your question, whoops, I'm sorry. Oh. Is it a competitive market rate, Senator? It's a lot higher than what I've seen in the private sector.
That's
Yeah.
what I kind of thought. So I was wondering. So, is it in the interest of the Ancestral Lands Commission to be paying that high of a commission rate to a property broker? What if I was to introduce a bill tomorrow that says the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the Ancestral Lands Commission shall RFP and go out and competitively solicit for these services? You're going to ring the bell? Go ahead, please.
The MOU that we got into is going to be 10 years old next year in July. Mm-hmm. When we first did this, the Ancestral Lands Commission, there was a lot of part of what we're dealing with here, the easements. How do we move forward to make sure that these problems don't occur again?
Yes.
And back then, the Ancestral Lands Commission didn't have money to hire its own attorney, and some decisions were made where attorney was not involved and the decisions didn't go too good. So GEDA had all those. GEDA is a property manager. They got resources to refer stuff to lawyers. And in the very beginning, the 14.3 says that we looked at it and we said, okay, that's for them to get all the paperwork in order. The process of putting it out for a bid or for highest and best use and all that. But this agreement was 10 years old. Now, in the agreement, it does state that at the I don't know the exact term, but it says that if GEDA collects fees but didn't do anything, you know, they just sat there and the check showed up, that it's their full decision, their decision, a one-way decision that they can decide to give some of that feedback to the Ancestral Lands Commission after they, you know, because like, for example, with the Matson one, there was a lot of back and forth even between lawyers, making sure the deed was correct and who's the real owner like that. But then as soon as that started going smoothly, there's no more to be done. But that 14.3 was locked in for 10 years, and that's gonna expire next year in July.
Okay.
And so we talked about we have to take a look at that rate.
And I have no problem. I have a lot of confidence in the land division at GEDA. In fact, I think the division manager there, Mr. Toves, I believe, right? I know he does an excellent job. I'm just concerned that, you know, as the trustees for the Crown lands, you should be trying to get as much as you can for the dollar that you're paying. And if somebody else can provide the same services at a lower fee, then I think it's really your fiduciary responsibility to, I mean, I don't know of any law that says GEDA has to be the property manager, but they should be able to compete for the property management services in the same way that, you know, a realty company would want to do that also and be your property manager. So, just so you know, that is something that I'm going to be looking at closely to make sure that the rates are competitive and that you're getting the most services that you can for the dollar that you pay. Now, how has the, in terms of, so you've got some revenue already that's being generated, right? And is the accounting for the of what ancestral land should be getting, is that fully? Is that fully? How would you put it?
Receive or fully receive.
Totally received, I guess.
I have the our person that employee that's handling that at Department of Management. If you want, you could
Yes.
come up and explain. Joy.
Yes, I would like to hear. Yeah, GEDA should stay at the table since we're you're still a main player.
Morning, or good afternoon, Senator. I'm Joseph Cruz.
Okay.
I'm employed with the Chamorro Land Trust Commission.
And what do you do specifically?
I'm the program coordinator for the Chamorro Land Trust Commission.
Okay. And what does, okay, fine. Go ahead.
You were questioning about the revenues generated by the commercial leases.
Right. So you've already got, you're generating revenue from property down at, by Polaris Point, which is, I believe, Matson that's leasing that. You've already got a lease executed on Route 3 there by vicinity of GRMC. Was that just those two pieces?
There's also in Tietzen that we manage.
Tietzen, where would that be?
It's the Guam Environmental Protective Agency and WIC, the WIC program office.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So you got those 3 revenue generating properties.
We have a total of 5.
Okay. All right. So please go ahead.
There's Department of Public Health and Social Services, the WIC program. There's Guam Environmental Protection Agency, Quick Space, Matson, and Transtil.
Okay. According to the, I guess, the testimony from GEDA, you're generating about there's about $4.2 million being generated annually, or
No, that's cumulative since for the 10 years.
for the 10 years?
From 2006 to 2016.
Okay. That has already been generated.
Yes, total.
Okay. So what would have been, so about 85% of that would have gone to Chamorro, to the Ancestral Lands Commission?
To the commission, 3,606,736.69.
And that represents about how much in proportion to the 4.2 million?
I believe a couple of years ago, the percentage actually changed within the MOU from what it is today and when it was concepted. So I can't give you a rough estimate on that, but it's close to the 14%, sir.
Okay. Please, go ahead, proceed.
So these are unaudited financial statements. So for the end of FY 2016, so far, Ancestral earned $585,039.64 from base rent and participation rent and interest income.
$500,000
Yes.
over the past 10 years?
No, just for FY 2016. I
Okay.
didn't bring a community.
So do we have for the past 10 years? Because GEDA is saying about 3+ million?
We didn't bring that with us, but we can.
Well, this is from what we gave to Ancestral and what we've collected total.
Right.
And the number of leases change often. Like last year, there were more leases than we have currently this year because one of the tenants actually finished their lease and they didn't renew.
Right.
So the amount per year will differ. Also, it also depends on payments being made at that fiscal year. If there are delinquent payments, then of course the total amount generated would be lower than prior years or the next year.
Okay. And if there are delinquent payments, are there penalty interests on those?
For delinquent payments, there are penalties for the private businesses. Currently, for the government agencies, there aren't any. Commissioner Ada and the commission has brought up possibly putting it into the MOU, but this is a MOU between the commission and these two government agencies that GEDA oversees, but it's purely between the two agencies.
Okay. So the figure that you have is $500,000 for just what year?
FY 2016.
FY 2016. Do you have the figure of how much was generated for FY 2016?
As a whole, I have it broken down by each lease. I can add it up right now if you would like. But it's pretty much similar to, because we pretty much go off of the same ledgers.
Sir, Senator, our financial system is set up based on actual. So what happens is we invoice in our system the actual rent, and when GEDA remits the money, then we input it as we receive the payment, then we go in and then we debit the expenses for their management fees. Even though GEDA submits a ledger showing collection, if payment is not remitted, we don't enter it yet. If payment is received for those receivables between October and December, then we recognize it as revenue. If not, then we defer the payment. So from now until December, if the receivables are not paid, then they'll be deferred, so our base rent revenue will go down.
Okay. I don't want to get into the accounting talk and all that. Is in your is the Ancestral Lands Commission receiving what the Ancestral Lands Commission believes it should have been receiving?
We do receive payment. Sometimes not in a
That's not what I
timely manner.
asked. If you're receiving payment, I asked, have you received what you should be receiving?
To date,
Well, yeah,
we still have some receivables.
I see. And so those are receivables from GEDA?
Yes.
About how much is that?
And some of these receivables could be due to because, like for instance, EPA hasn't paid in a while.
Understand.
So our total receivables come out to $306,638.20.
200,000.
300.
300,000. Okay. Receivables over how many days? 90?
There are some over 90 days is $244,542.73. 61 to 90 is $17,086.91. 31 to 60 is $45,008.56.
All right, when you were giving out those numbers, it kind of like took you by surprise. Did it?
Well, because I have the carryovers from 2016, and it's something that I'll talk to Joey about.
Okay.
The number difference that I have is about 100,000 different, but I understand that Ancestral Lands puts in their invoices into their system for every month, and it also shows up for us as accounts receivable for these government agencies, but it's not money that we have because we haven't been paid to be able to remit to Ancestral Lands.
Right. Okay.
Just to correct my statement, $62,705.10 is due to the GASB 13 for the
Okay.
rent escalation.
All right. Okay. All right. Maybe there needs to be a little bit more talking with each other. Okay. All right. All right. We're heading in the right direction. So the Ancestral Lands Commission has some revenue generating properties. How are those revenues being used?
What's the cost to 60?
Is Ancestral Lands Commission receiving any general funds for its operations?
The revenue from the Land Bank Trust Fund is not being utilized other than for the fee that's being paid to GEDA.
Okay. So how much do you have in the land bank?
We have
fund?
$4,315,810.18.
Okay. So that's a separate account.
Yes.
And then what do you use? Do you use any of the revenues generated for your operations, or is it strictly general fund?
Strictly general fund.
Okay. So you got $4 million sitting in a bank account for the land bank, and that's intended, if I'm correct, to be distributed to those landowners who will not see their land returned, such as the landowners that the runway sits on. Is that correct? Did you want to answer?
Yes, that's right. As soon as we're done with our rules and reg, then we should start getting all the things together for those monies that aren't there are for, just compensation for those original landowners who will never realize their property. So that money's being held in there for that purpose.
Okay.
Senator, and it all depends on the rules and regulation as to who's the recipients that are identified recipients to receive the funds.
Okay. Now, those rules and regulations are going to have to be sent to the legislature for approval, correct?
That's right.
When do you anticipate it's going to come to the legislature?
The rules and regulation, Senator, is being reviewed by the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
And as soon as they are done with it, we'll hack on it and we'll be able to send it to the board and the board towards the legislature.
How long has it been sitting in the Attorney General's office?
So maybe a month, 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
About 2 months? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything further on the rule? So that's basically what's holding up
Yes.
the
That's
distribution
pending,
of,
yes.
of that.
And then you go on the way to
Okay.
reach the legislature.
Do we have the slide on the Amantis Crown Lands? Where do we stand on the litigation involving the Ancestral Lands Commission? And I guess that basically is the question of how much is to be paid to the lawyer for the. Can somebody explain that to me? I know that there was wasn't there a lawsuit against the Ancestral Lands Commission by Attorney Vandervelt?
We have a listing as to the status, right? We have a listing of our current litigation.
Do I have that, Joe?
And more likely, we're just awaiting for outcomes. So, that's what they afforded us from the AG's office.
Okay, so everything is basically pending at the AG's office.
Right? To let us know, yeah.
Okay.
Where's the list?
I want to take a look at. I want to shift now to. Want to stay on the issue of Crown lands, but Crown lands up at the Amantis. With respect to the interest that the utilities may have, and I want to get some input from you regarding that issue. Can you orient me, Joe? Orient me on where the wastewater treatment plant is, and where this is the wastewater treatment plant, and the Crown lands in the Amantis area is where? This area here?
Not all of it.
Do we have another? I thought I seen another. I thought I saw another graph that showed further breakdown.
That's what they're going to take.
So while they're bringing up that that map, has there been any discussion between GPA and GWA or the CCU, the Ancestral Lands Commission, regarding their interest in the Crown lands in the vicinity of the Northern District Wastewater Treatment Plant? If there has, please kind of bring me up to date on that.
Yes, Senator. We do have, we met with CCU and Waterworks on that. Plus, they appear in front of the board too, concerning the request that they have with ancestral land property.
Ancestral land property, Crown lands in particular.
Crown in particular, yeah.
Okay. And their interest was, are we coming up with that map here pretty soon? Okay. And their interest basically is to, they have to expand their wastewater treatment plant, and they also want to construct their power plant in that same vicinity. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, the same vicinity, yes, but not on the same property of the one that they were requesting.
Right. So let's just. And so what has the what is the commission's reaction to the overture that has been made by the utilities? Is it not no, but heck no, or is it let's sit down and talk?
Well, they're looking at more likely 17.1 acres of land.
Okay.
And within that vicinity also, there's also private landowners who would maybe, that's their deal. We're just looking at our own crown land.
Correct.
Yes, it is very positive because if you look at it, it's for the needs, especially for the people in the northern, and to extend all the way to all the needs of those people in Guam. And it is very interesting, and we're looking at a win-win situation where, they put in what they want to offer us, and then we'll look at it, and from there. But we're working with them.
And what has, go ahead, Tony.
Go for it. Okay. Earlier you mentioned the case with Attorney Vanderbilt.
Yes.
In that case, what happened was it was a case to take 395 acres at the back Route 15 and about a little bit less than 600 acres at the FAA location to give it to one specific group of dispossessed landowners.
Right.
And the Ancestral Lands Commission was not, initially we were told we're not part of this this litigation. Some original landowners that were not part of the TZN group asked Attorney Vanderbilt to represent them because that was going to constitute about maybe 80-90% of all the lands in the inventory of the Ancestral Lands Commission, the Land Bank Trust. And when you do that, our ability to generate funds through leasing the properties would be almost destroyed because what do we have left? And so that group went and I guess they successfully stopped this transfer of lands to one group because it's if government was going to do this, there was some legislation presented. Government can take land for the benefit of the entire community, not just one small specific group, right? And if the government was going to do it, they would have to go to as I understand it, procedure of condemnation. In other words, you don't just take it and you're not going to compensate for the land. But our mandate or our belief is that the Land Bank Trust has to remain intact. So taking lands out of the Land Bank Trust will basically, we have no power. So with the 17 acres that Waterworks wants, and
which I believe is, was it this? This is the Crown lands here?
Okay. Joan, this is the treatment plan, no, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so then this is the road going down to Tengisan?
Yes.
Okay, so the treatment plan here's the road. They wanted to, or they're proposing to come across the street to take the 17 acres that are...
it's highlighted in blue?
Yeah. And that discussion, we didn't say no.
Okay.
We said, why don't you take property within your footprint there around the same side of the street? And they said that this one here, I believe Cortec, they expressed that they didn't want to give it up. When I asked Director Budazu, taking the 17, was that your first option? He goes, no, that was our second option. I asked him what was the first. He said, here. But because this is vacant and this has some structure in it, I guess it was going to, they went through that process of analyzing and such. But here, for a public benefit is good, but again, we have to, from our position, we have to say, you cannot just take it and because it's going to diminish our ability to do the mandate of us to try and generate funds to compensate those dispossessed landowners who will never get their land back. So they proposed that they got some funding, and they said that they could buy the land. And we threw out some other proposals. Why don't you lease it? Because that would generate funds, and the land will stay in the inventory, or trade for another area. And we didn't take that discussion all the way through, or at least I wasn't present, whether that's a possibility. But if we reduce the amount of acreage that we have to utilize for generating money, same rationale, you know. So that's where, from the last discussion, that's where we ended up.
So there's a couple of options on the table. Either long-term lease it or exchange it value for value with land elsewhere.
One of the biggest one is the purchase.
Right.
Value for value, purchase on appraised value on appraised value.
Okay.
But as far what I understand on the board, when we have the last meeting with Joey, the CCU and the Cibodalio from Waterworks, is that the board members is not table it, but put it on consideration to be discussed further. And we're putting it on the next meeting, in which is around 26th of October, for discussion again. They do address the purchase. They do address about finding another property and buying it in exchange for the crown land.
Okay.
All those things.
Now you do realize that the utilities is moving forward, right? They've got grant money for the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. They're getting their ducks in order to be able to go out to the bond market for the power plant. So they're moving along, and the Ancestral Lands Commission needs to be, standing at its front door saying, here's our position.
Yeah. I believe they did mention to us that the option of leasing is a very hard option to go through because of the kind of funding that they're getting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Senator?
Yes, sir.
We actually prefer that, our original position was go somewhere else, of course.
Sure.
Take it there. Right. So that's if they can do it without us, we're happy with that.
Yeah.
But because of the,
Do you think that's feasible?
Yeah, well, that's when during the meeting with them that everything came out, and I think we have an agreement of how we want to do it, because it's for the benefit of the public.
Right, and there is good rationale as to why they want it in the vicinity of the, and basically, I guess they're going to upgrade the treatment plant to a secondary treatment facility, which then the water, instead of pumping it out to the ocean, they're basically going to use that as the cooling water for the power plant that will be built adjacent to
Yes,
it.
we understand. And the second one would be leasing. We prefer that, but it's not favorable for their federal financing or however grants they got going. They have to own the property, is what they told us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's for public use. Remember that discussion earlier? It's
Yes.
going to public use. So we're kind of balancing this thing. I think the Waterworks has come to us to discuss it, but maybe you can clarify. I think if it is for public use, they could go ahead and condemn it and compensate, right? I mean,
Well, personally, I don't think I don't want to go up to you and punch you in the face and then say, will you agree to this? I think there's ways that we might be able to make it a win-win situation for everyone. But at least I just wanted to hear it from you that, in fact, there has been this interaction and that you are aware of their interest and that you're thinking about it. So, as long as I kind of get that assurance, then let's move in that direction. I'm down to my two final questions. One is the status, the commission members itself. Right now, the commission members, I think you're probably the only commission that the members do not have to undergo legislative confirmation. However, I think each one needs to be appointed by the governor for a certain period of time. Is that correct? I haven't, if you can maybe provide my office a copy of the appointment letters. And go ahead and then also, what is the status of the commission members? Are they still within their tenure, or have they expired?
Just reappointed.
Okay.
And we have that letters in our, so if you want, we could send you a copy.
Yeah, please, because
Okay.
right now it's strictly between the governor's office and the ancestral lands.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going on with you guys, but just to let you know, my position is that the Ancestral Lands Commission oversees, a large public trust, and it should not be any different from any other commission. I believe it should go through legislative confirmation, and it just it goes through that vetting process. So just to make you be aware of that, I'm not sure yet how we're going to do that, how we make that transition, but I'm certainly considering introducing legislation that we really should make the commission members be duly confirmed by the legislature. What I forget what the law requires as the qualifications to be appointed on the board.
Okay, each board member is appointed by the Magalahi of Guam. And in order to be a board member, you must be a descendant or heir to a property here in the island. And you have to be a resident of Guam. Ancestral.
Okay.
That you have to show that you have a family that owns lands that were condemned back then, and it consists of 7 members, in which 5 needs to be there to determine a land claim. Like when you come in and you claim that you want this property, we need 5 to determine that claim. On the administrative matters, it takes 4.
Okay.
To be present.
So it's like a 2/3 then.
Correct.
For land
Yes.
claims.
Yes.
All right. And finally, I guess my final question would be, is there any legislative intervention that the commission would like to see to move things along? So, for example, when the rules and regulations makes its way and is received by the legislature, then of course what's going to happen is one of two things. One, we can either, it gets received by the legislature, let it sit, don't do anything, and after 90 days, it defaults to approval. Or, because personally I wouldn't do that, because it's an important document, I would want to do a public hearing on it. And then basically accept it through legislation. So that could take, anywhere from 30 to 120 days from the time that it gets here. But other than that, and we will move it along as fast as we can, other than that, is there any other legislative intervention that you feel the legislature might be able to do to facilitate the work that you do?
Okay, I'll go first real quick. Basically, the 5-year limitation on the leasing of our Crown land properties. I mean, that's a big, there's actually a question on whether it actually applies to ancestral lands. We had a discussion on that, and even our legal counsel was kind of iffy. They don't really know, and we were thinking it didn't apply. But if you clarified that 5-year, take for example those properties up in Radio Barrigada that are Crown lands. I mean, there's no way anybody can, would want to do a 5-year limitation on those huge properties in order to get their returns on investment. So I think the actual intent of what the legislature, their limitation on that 5-year stipulation, I'm not too sure what the intent was with that regarding these commercial properties. Yeah. So if you helped us, clarify that and maybe introduce legislation that clarified that it doesn't apply to ancestral lands, that greatly helps.
So I think two things. One, I don't think we need legislation to clarify that, more so than we would just ask the Attorney General to give her opinion as to whether Crown lands are public lands, and I guess it is public lands. So that's the route we can use to get clarification about whether that 5-year limitation applies to the Crown lands. The second thing is on the 5-year limitation, you really got to read the law closely, because what the law requires is that if you're going to rent out a piece of property for longer than 5 years, it just simply requires you to do certain things. One, you've got to put out a request for interest to let other potential developers be aware that, hey, we got this property here available for development. And other developers may be aware, as opposed to saying, we got this property here, do you want to lease it? And that's what that law was written for. So it requires that. If in your case, because the commission, there's a commission based on the authority of the commission then could basically issue that determination of need. Yes, we need to lease out this property for 10 years. Now, mind you, I'm not giving a legal opinion here. I'm not a lawyer.
I was just about to ask that.
But I drafted the bill.
Okay.
So that's why I'm familiar with that. And the whole intent was to put the information and be transparent, to let potential developers be aware that there's this property available, and it's going to be available for a long-term lease, and it's to be available for a certain general need, to put up a residential subdivision or whatever. That information comes down to the legislature for information. We don't have to approve it. We just look at it and say, okay, fine. But if it doesn't look like,
I see.
It's in place, then the legislature could step in and start asking questions. So that's really the intent of it, is to make this whole process transparent.
And that's been a stickler for us for the longest time since that became law, because even GEDA didn't know how to interpret that law. And with regard to putting out the RFP, are they supposed to put the 5-year? Is that 5 years supposed to be listed on that RFP? I mean, that's what we
Of course not.
Yeah, he's saying yes right now.
There's no investor that's going to come in and plunk a couple of $1 million and expect to get his returns in 5 years.
Okay, so it's not necessary to put in, just your opinion, that 5-year stipulation with regard to the RFP.
So the 5-year limit is basically the commission on its authority can go and lease out properties for up to 5 years. Anything beyond that, then you have to, make it more transparent so that there's a more competitive solicitation being put out of that this property is available.
Well, I'm very happy that you kind of clarified for us, because then we can just put out the RFP long-term lease and then have the determination of need presented to the legislature, and if you approve, there's no real approval needed.
We don't really approve. No, we just want to know what's happening.
I think, Senator, the biggest question there is that does ancestral land
You could say that.
property
Yeah.
is included on the Chamorro Land Trust Rules and Regulation? That's the Chamorro Land Trust Rules and Regulation.
Is it? I don't think so.
It is, and it falls under that bill concerning the Chamorro Land
Okay,
Trust Rules
so-
and Regulation.
so if these are-
and that's a question, since it's a Chamorro Land Trust Rules and Regulation that is applied to ancestral.
Okay, I'm not sure we want to sort this out here, but I mean, if these are the sort of...
ancestral, only minimal, that's ancestral land community, that's it. Nothing.
See, I've always understood ancestral lands and Chamorro Land Trust are really two separate.
Separate. That's the question that Guida's
assets.
asking, and I will.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, these are questions that should be answered by, is Ms. Finney also the legal counsel for the ancestral lands?
They don't know how to. We're getting. It's been a stickler, like I said. We're getting different opinions on. We're getting very big. I mean, differing opinions with regard to that 5-year. It doesn't apply. Yes, it does apply. GEDA's reluctant to move forward with anything with it if it's that. So I think he has a question.
As GEDA, our SOP for leasing property has always been we go out to bid. We never operate in a silo. Any property, even GEDA's property that's available, will go out to bid. And the commission always recommends always to go out to bid. With the commission's properties, they're take Polaris for instance, they're very, very large properties. Now, whether what our SOP that we established within GEDA is, we're gonna do a DON no matter what, whether the bidder offers for 5 years or 10 years with 5 options to renew. We're just gonna go out with a DON. It was just the entire process where we have a interested party that comes in and says, "Oh, I'm interested in this property, but I need to lease it for beyond this 5-year period. What are these extra steps?" We tell them, an exemption needs to be established. We need to submit a determination of need that starts the process, and then we can go out for an RFP after a certain time period. And then I believe there is a public hearing section within this whole process for the exemption of the long term, to be able to do the long-term leases. And it's small things like that, especially for such large properties. These investors that come in that want to use it, they kind of see that as an additional step. But it was made today, it was clarified today that it was for the legislature to review, and if there was something that the legislature found that was not kosher, then it would be questioned. But it's not particular that the legislature needs to approve it, which brings a lot of clarification for us, because we're looking at going at our first round with the DON for the Polaris property, and we've been working on this, and we have our determination of need ready, the advertisement for determination of need. So we want to go at it already, but we were just looking for the little clarification, and also the Attorney General's office opinion on whether the 5-year law applies to the Ancestral Lands Commission was one thing. But our thought at GEDA is we're just going to move forward with the determination of need, because we have property that's good and ready for leasing right now.
I think the legislature has been very careful about getting in, taking away the powers that you have. And you guys have to go back and read your enabling act to fully understand what your powers are. And the legislature has been very careful about not going in there and inserting itself over the authorities that you already have. I think at the very minimum, the legislature just wants to know what's going on. And if it feels that something is not right, then it'll step in and you'll make that be known. But otherwise, you guys have a lot of authority, and we just want to know. We don't want to have to open the newspaper and find out, like, wow, this thing got leased out for 90 years, and the rent at 90 years is going to be based on what it was, the market value 90 years before. Things like that is what we're going to, and believe me, we have contracts that that have those kind of clauses. Yes, Tony.
You can find out what that is in the 14.3 that we're paying you, right? The funds in the
Smart.
the funds in the that are in the land bank, the trust funds, the funds that are in there, were restricted from touching it for anything other than to for the beneficiaries. There's another fund called the Landowners Recovery Fund, and then there's another one called an operating fund. So the operating fund, before now that we're integrated with the main land management, we don't have to go buy toner or paper or staples like that, right? It's kind of absorbed in there, but there are other things that that need to be paid. The Landowners Recovery Fund, I think, can also solve the easement problem. We mentioned that the property has to be subdivided. The big problem that a lot of landowners have is, I'm land rich, I cannot afford a surveyor. So the Landowners Recovery Fund is written in there that Ancestral Lands can loan money to the landowners to hire a surveyor, and they can pay it back. We don't have money in there to do that. So if the legislature, if we look at it closer, the legislature can load that thing up for those kind of purposes, to loan it out so they can hire a surveyor, they subdivide it, that easement thing, a lot of it will be resolved, right? Because really some of them can't do it, and then that's probably another strong reason why people are landlocked.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I've just been on the commission for 1 year, and it has been quite enlightening and quite exciting. And you have a commission whose members are very vigilant, very excited, and take their jobs seriously. One of the things that I understand in the amount of Crown lands that is currently with the commission, that many of them have not been surveyed or mapped. And there has been incidences as properties are returned and people begin to have maps, have their property boundary points identified. There may have been cases, either by error or intention, that their properties might have extended a little bit more and encroached into Crown lands. And so I think there is a need for funding for either Ancestral Lands Commission, land management, to go in and start surveying these Crown lands and to have maps recorded to protect the properties that we have. And so I'm not sure if we have the funding to that, or if that has to come from the legislature, or can the Department of Land Management Survey Division be tasked with doing the maps, or does this go out for bid?
So
How does that
I will
work?
tell you right off, don't expect that money to come from the general fund, because the general fund doesn't have it. But there's a lot of creative ways you can do that, right? So you've got somebody like GPA and GWA interested in that Crown land up there, and so maybe I shouldn't talk about this in public, but it's a standard thing, I guess, in real estate transactions. Is if you're really earnest about wanting my property, put some money on the table. Take that money and use that to survey that land. I don't know. I'll probably get bombed about this, but there's a lot of creative ways that you can do it, but don't hold your breath for that money to come from the general fund, because it's not going to come from there. You've got $4 million sitting in a bank account doing nothing. If you need legislation that says you can use a portion of that to put it into a land recovery account or whatever, then let's sit down and talk about it and take a look at the possibilities. But to say that we don't have any money, I'm not going to buy that, because I know we got $4 million sitting in an account doing nothing.
And you're right. I wasn't assuming that we don't have the money, but
no.
your idea of, creative means is great. And I'm sure we can all put our heads together on that, but I see it as something that is very critical to protect, the Crown lands and to make sure that whatever, is held by the government of Guam is held, and that it's not stolen because we've just allowed it to sit there because we don't know where the boundaries are. And I think it's essential also in making property marketable to be able to identify boundary points to prospective investors. And yes, I agree with you. As far as the negotiating of the leases, perhaps that could be, negotiated into the lease as well, the cost of that. And so, yes, we will look at, as you say, creative ways to do this.
Creative and legal.
And legal, absolutely, absolutely. But I also like what you said, that perhaps, as you said, we have over $4 million that's sitting there for just compensation for folks who may not be getting their properties back ever. But if there was a way that some of that could be tapped for the benefit, of the community to be able to do that, that would be something to consider also.
I'm sure
Thank you.
Mr. Vanderbilt will be calling my office this afternoon, but anyway, it's the age-old adage of you got to spend money to make money, and so, okay.
Senator, way back when Senator Pangilinan is still alive, I discussed that issue with him about utilizing the land bank funds for that purpose in identifying all this ground land, in which is the main source of making money for the land bank. Even concerning the percentage that we're paying for GEDA, why can't we get some money out of that for us to utilize for whatever needs that we need for the processing of all these land bank issues and other things. And what he did is he told me that he needs some legislation, and you'll see how he's going to present it and all those things. But somehow he passed away.
Sure.
And most likely that will be the avenue to take to identify the usage or the do's and don'ts from on that account.
Sure.
Right now it's very silent. All we're saying is that we cannot use it. But the question is, if we cannot use it, why are we paying GEDA? There's a certain percent that been utilized from that rental,
Sure.
from that lease for GEDA, and why, and I think that's one of the issues that may be the director board and maybe coming from you to identify the usage of that for that purpose.
Okay, so our discussion is not going to end here. We will maintain actively engaged because I really would like to see this momentum continue, and I feel excited about it, and there's a lot of things to be excited about. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, thank you for showing up. I appreciate GEDA showing up. Then we'll consider this oversight hearing as being adjourned. Thank you.